The warm Moroccan sun cast long shadows across the ancient Medina as Prince Harry adjusted his traditional white jalaba, the flowing robe feeling foreign, yet somehow fitting against his skin. Beside him, Meghan Markle, now the Duchess of Sussex, radiated confidence in her carefully chosen ensemble, her hand instinctively moving to cradle the gentle curve of her growing belly. This wasn't just another royal visit. This was their final official overseas tour as senior working royals, though neither of them knew it at the time. In the bustling streets of Rabat and the Atlas Mountains beyond, something magical was about to unfold. What began as a diplomatic mission would transform into a deeply personal journey that would challenge preconceptions, forge unexpected connections, and create memories that would resonate long after the cameras stopped rolling. The Kingdom of Morocco, with its rich tapestry of Berber, Arab, and French influences, was about to welcome two visitors who would leave as much changed as the lives they touched. As the call to prayer echoed across the ancient city, and the scent of mint tea and orange blossoms filled the air, Harry and Meghan stepped into a world where royal protocol would meet raw human emotion, where carefully planned itineraries would give way to spontaneous moments of genuine connection, and where the true meaning of service would reveal itself in the most unexpected ways. This is the story of 3 days that would define not just a royal tour, but the very essence of what it means to bridge cultures, break barriers, and find common ground in an increasingly divided world. The plane descended through puffy white clouds, offering glimpses of the Moroccan coastline, where the Atlantic Ocean met golden beaches and sprawling cities. Harry gazed out the window, his mind racing with thoughts of the journey ahead. This February 2019 trip carried extra weight, not just because Meghan was 6 months pregnant with her first child, but because of what it represented. The palace had carefully selected Morocco as their destination, understanding the delicate diplomatic dance required in a nation that bridged Africa, the Middle East, and Europe. As the aircraft touched down at Mohammed V International Airport in Rabat, Harry felt the familiar flutter of nervous excitement that accompanied overseas visits. But this time was different. Meghan's pregnancy had already sparked global conversations about modernizing the monarchy, and every moment of this trip would be scrutinized through that lens. The press pack traveling with them was larger than usual, international media outlets eager to capture what many sensed might be a pivotal moment for the royal family. The airport arrival unfolded with the practiced precision of royal protocol. King Mohammed VI had personally ensured that every detail reflected Morocco's renowned hospitality. Traditional Nawa musicians filled the air with hypnotic rhythms, while women in colorful kaftans scattered rose petals along the red carpet. Harry, dressed in a navy suit, and Meghan, stunning in a bespoke cream dress by Valentine Hernandez that perfectly accommodated her growing bump, emerged from the aircraft to a genuinely warm welcome. What struck Harry immediately was the authenticity of the reception. Unlike some official visits where enthusiasm felt manufactured, the Moroccan welcome radiated genuine excitement. Children pressed against barriers, not just to glimpse royalty, but to see the woman they had read about, the former actress who had married their prince and brought a different perspective to the ancient institution. Meghan's mixed-race heritage resonated particularly strongly in Morocco, a nation proud of its own diverse cultural tapestry. The drive from the airport through Rabat revealed a city in transition. Ancient Casbahs stood alongside modern glass buildings, while traditional markets operated in the shadows of international hotels. Harry found himself comparing it to his previous visits to other African nations, noting how Morocco felt both familiar and entirely unique. The architecture told stories of Roman occupation, Islamic conquest, French colonialism, and modern independence, layers of history visible in every street corner. Their first official stop was the residence of the British ambassador, where a small gathering of Moroccan officials and British expatriates waited. Harry had attended hundreds of such receptions, but he noticed how Meghan approached each conversation with genuine curiosity. when a young Moroccan woman studying at Cambridge University told her about the challenges of pursuing education as a woman from a traditional family. Meghan listened with the intensity of someone who truly understood the weight of breaking barriers. The conversation revealed something that would become a recurring theme throughout their visit: the power of personal connection transcending cultural differences. The student, Amina, later recalled how the Duchess asked detailed questions about her studies, her family's reaction, and her future plans. It wasn't the polite small talk of royal duty, but the engaged dialogue of someone who understood the courage required to forge your own path. As evening approached, Harry and Meghan were taken to their accommodation at the La Mamounia Hotel in Marrakesh, where they would spend their first night. The journey south from Rabat offered glimpses of Morocco's stunning landscape. Rolling hills dotted with olive groves, small villages where daily life continued unchanged for generations, and the gradually emerging peaks of the Atlas Mountains in the distance. La Mamounia, with its legendary gardens and palatial architecture, had hosted everyone from Winston Churchill to Alfred Hitchcock. The hotel staff, accustomed to distinguished guests, were nonetheless excited by this particular arrival. The royal suite had been prepared with exquisite attention to detail, featuring traditional Moroccan craftsmanship alongside modern luxury. Rose petals scattered on silk cushions, intricate zellige tile work catching the lamplight, and the gentle sound of fountains in the courtyard below created an atmosphere of serene elegance. But what captivated Meghan most was the story behind the hotel's gardens. The head gardener, Hassan, had worked there for 37 years, tending to rare plants and ancient trees with the devotion of someone who understood that beauty required patience, knowledge, and respect for nature's rhythms. When Hassan learned that the Duchess was interested in the gardens, he offered to show her around personally despite the late hour. Walking through the moonlit paths, Hassan explained how different plants have been brought to Morocco over centuries of trade and cultural exchange. The orange trees came from China via Islamic traders, the roses originated in Persia, and the palms have been cultivated by Berber tribes long before written history. Each plant told a story of connection across cultures and time, much like Morocco itself. Harry watched his wife absorb these stories with obvious fascination. Her questions revealed not just curiosity, but a deeper understanding of how gardens could represent hope, growth, and the patient cultivation of beauty in challenging circumstances. Hassan, initially nervous about speaking with royalty, found himself sharing stories he rarely told, about how his grandfather had taught him that gardens were places where different species could thrive together if given proper care and attention. The metaphor wasn't lost on any of them. As they returned to their suite, Meghan's hand once again moved to her belly, where their child was growing. In a few months, they would welcome a baby who represented the blending of different worlds: British royalty and American entertainment, European tradition and African heritage, ancient institutions, and modern values. Their first evening in Morocco concluded with a private dinner featuring traditional Moroccan cuisine. The menu had been carefully planned to accommodate Meghan's pregnancy while showcasing the country's culinary heritage. Tagines fragrant with preserved lemons and olives, pastries delicate with almonds and honey, and mint tea served in ornate glasses created a feast for all the senses. Over dinner, their Moroccan hosts shared stories that revealed the complexity and richness of their nation. They spoke of the Berber queen Tin Hinan, who had led her people across the Sahara to establish kingdoms that lasted centuries. They described the libraries of Fez, where Islamic scholars had preserved and advanced knowledge during Europe's dark ages. They explained how Morocco had been one of the first nations to recognize American independence, and how Moroccan ports had sheltered Allied ships during World War II. These weren't the simplified narratives often presented to visiting dignitaries, but nuanced stories that acknowledged both achievements and struggles. Harry appreciated this honesty, recognizing it as a sign of respect. His host trusted him and Meghan to understand complexity rather than needing everything reduced to convenient sound bites. As the evening wound down, Harry reflected on how this first day had already exceeded expectations. The genuine warmth of their reception, the depth of conversations, and the obvious care that had gone into every detail of their welcome suggested that the next 2 days would offer experiences far richer than typical royal visits. Meghan, despite the exhaustion that came with pregnancy and international travel, felt energized by the day's encounters. The people they had met, from the ambitious student to the devoted gardener to the knowledgeable dinner hosts, had challenged her assumptions and expanded her understanding of a nation she had previously known only through headlines and history books. Outside their window, Marrakesh settled into its nighttime rhythm. The call to prayer echoed across the ancient Medina, while modern traffic continued through the newer districts. Street vendors called out in Arabic, French, and Berber languages, while tourists from around the world explored the famous souks and squares. It was a symphony of cultures and traditions that would provide the backdrop for the meaningful encounters awaiting them in the days ahead. Neither Harry nor Meghan could have imagined that this trip would later be remembered as one of their final acts as senior working royals. At the time, they simply felt grateful for the opportunity to represent the crown in a nation that had welcomed them with such genuine enthusiasm. As they settled into sleep, the sound of fountains and the scent of orange blossoms drifting through their windows, they looked forward to discovering more of Morocco's treasures and meeting more of its remarkable people. The morning sun painted the Atlas Mountains in shades of gold and amber as Harry and Meghan prepared for their first full day of official engagements. The hotel staff had prepared a traditional Moroccan breakfast featuring fresh pastries, local honey, seasonal fruits, and aromatic coffee that filled their suite with inviting fragrances. Meghan, careful about her dietary choices during pregnancy, was delighted to discover how naturally healthy Moroccan cuisine could be when prepared with fresh, local ingredients. Their first destination was the Hassan II Mosque in Casablanca, one of the largest mosques in the world and a masterpiece of modern Islamic architecture. The journey from Marrakesh provided spectacular views of Morocco's diverse landscape. Fertile plains where farmers tended ancient olive groves, small towns where traditional crafts continued unchanged for generations, and, gradually, the coastal city of Casablanca rising from the Atlantic shoreline. The mosque visit carried special significance beyond its architectural magnificence. Built partially over the ocean, it represented Morocco's position as a bridge between continents and cultures. The structure itself told a story of Islamic artistic achievement, with intricate geometric patterns covering every surface and a minaret that soared over 200 meters into the sky, topped by a laser beam that pointed toward Mecca. Harry had visited many religious sites during his royal duties, but the Hassan II Mosque impressed him with its combination of spiritual purpose and artistic achievement. The massive prayer hall could accommodate over 20,000 worshippers, while the adjoining courtyards and fountains created spaces for contemplation and community gathering. The craftsmanship was extraordinary. Tens of thousands of artisans had spent years creating the intricate mosaics, carved stone details, and painted wooden ceilings that adorned every surface. Their guide, Imam Abdullah, was a scholar who had studied at universities in both Morocco and Britain, giving him unique insight into bridging different cultural perspectives. He explained how Islamic architectural principles emphasized both beauty and function, creating spaces that inspired spiritual reflection while serving practical community needs. The geometric patterns that covered the walls weren't merely decorative but represented mathematical concepts that Islamic scholars had developed and preserved during periods when such knowledge was threatened elsewhere. Meghan found herself particularly moved by the women's prayer area, where intricate mother-of-pearl inlays caught and reflected light in constantly shifting patterns. Imam Abdullah explained how Islamic tradition emphasized the importance of creating beautiful spaces for worship, understanding that aesthetic beauty could enhance spiritual experience. The careful attention to acoustics meant that prayers and recitations would resonate perfectly throughout the vast space. What struck both Harry and Meghan was how the mosque represented Islamic civilization's contributions to art, science, and architecture, contributions that were often overlooked in contemporary discussions. The mathematical precision required for the geometric patterns, the engineering expertise needed to build over the ocean, and the artistic vision that unified thousands of decorative elements into a coherent whole demonstrated intellectual and creative achievements that spanned centuries. Their conversation with Imam Abdullah revealed how Morocco's Islamic heritage coexisted with its diverse cultural influences. He described how Moroccan Islam incorporated Berber traditions, how the country had historically been a refuge for different religious communities, and how contemporary Morocco continued to balance religious identity with modern development. It was a nuanced discussion that avoided simplistic characterizations, instead acknowledging complexity and evolution. From Casablanca, they traveled to Rabat for their next engagement at the Andalusian Gardens, where they would meet with young Moroccan entrepreneurs and activists. The gardens themselves were a testament to Morocco's Andalusian heritage, featuring plants and design elements brought by Muslims fleeing the Christian reconquista of Spain. Palm trees, citrus groves, and flowering bushes created a peaceful setting that seemed worlds away from the bustling city beyond the walls. The young people they met represented Morocco's emerging generation, educated, ambitious, and eager to contribute to their country's development while honoring its traditions. There was Youssef, a young engineer developing renewable energy solutions for rural communities. His solar panel initiatives were bringing electricity to remote mountain villages while providing sustainable employment for local residents. Meghan was fascinated by how he combined cutting-edge technology with deep respect for traditional ways of life. Aisha, a social entrepreneur, had created programs helping young women develop business skills while preserving traditional crafts. Her workshops taught everything from modern marketing techniques to ancient weaving patterns, enabling participants to earn independent incomes while maintaining cultural connections. Harry recognized in her work echoes of his own Invictus Games philosophy, using challenge as an opportunity for growth and empowerment. These conversations revealed Morocco's balancing act between honoring tradition and embracing progress. The young entrepreneurs weren't rejecting their heritage, but finding ways to build upon it. They spoke Arabic, French, and English with equal fluency, traveled internationally for education and experience, yet remained deeply connected to their families and communities. Their stories challenged stereotypes while demonstrating how globalization could enhance rather than diminish cultural identity. The afternoon brought a visit to a local school that had benefited from British-Moroccan educational partnerships. The children, ranging from 6 to 16 years old, had prepared traditional songs and dances for their royal visitors. But what began as a formal presentation quickly transformed into something more spontaneous and joyful. The younger children, initially shy, gradually warmed up to Meghan's gentle encouragement and Harry's playful interactions. One particular moment became iconic when a young girl named Fatima, perhaps 6 years old, approached Meghan and gently touched her pregnant belly while asking in broken English if the baby could hear her. Meghan knelt down to the child's level and explained, in her carefully practiced Arabic phrases, that the baby could indeed hear voices and might even enjoy the songs the children had sung. The interaction, captured by photographers, would later become one of the most shared images from the entire trip. The school visit revealed both the achievements and challenges of Moroccan education. The children demonstrated impressive multilingual abilities, switching effortlessly between Arabic, French, and English depending on their audience. Their artwork displayed creativity and technical skill, while their questions showed curiosity about the wider world. Yet teachers privately acknowledged ongoing struggles with resource limitations and the need for more support in rural areas. Harry found himself drawn into an impromptu football match during the school's break time. Despite his formal attire, he couldn't resist joining the children's enthusiastic game, much to their delight and his security team's mild concern. The sight of a British prince playing football with Moroccan children in a dusty schoolyard perfectly captured the trip's spirit of genuine human connection transcending official protocol. The children's questions revealed their sophisticated understanding of global issues. They asked about climate change, international cooperation, and opportunities for educational exchange. Their teachers had clearly prepared them well, but their curiosity went beyond rehearsed presentations. They wanted to know about Harry's military service, Meghan's acting career, and what their baby might be like. These weren't the sanitized interactions typical of official visits, but real conversations with real children. As the day continued, Harry and Meghan attended a reception at the British Embassy, where they met Moroccan professionals working in fields ranging from renewable energy to cultural preservation. The conversations revealed how many educated Moroccans maintained strong connections to both their homeland and international communities. Several had studied in Britain, others had worked for multinational companies, yet all remained committed to contributing to Morocco's development. Dr. Layla Ben Ali, a climatologist studying North African weather patterns, explained how climate change was affecting traditional agricultural practices and how farmers were adapting with both ancient wisdom and modern techniques. Her research contributed to international climate databases while directly helping local communities prepare for changing conditions. Her work embodied Morocco's approach to global challenges, participating fully in international cooperation while maintaining focus on local needs. The evening concluded with a private dinner featuring contemporary Moroccan cuisine that showcased how traditional flavors could be presented in innovative ways. Chef Moha Fidel had gained international recognition for his creative interpretations of classic dishes, using local ingredients in preparations that honored heritage while embracing culinary evolution. The meal became a metaphor for Morocco itself, deeply rooted in tradition, yet constantly adapting and growing. Over dinner, their hosts shared stories about Morocco's role in international diplomacy, its contributions to peacekeeping efforts, and its initiatives in renewable energy development. They discussed the country's ambitious plans for economic diversification and its efforts to position itself as a bridge between Europe, Africa, and the Middle East. These weren't boastful claims, but thoughtful explanations of Morocco's strategic vision and practical steps toward achieving it. Meghan was particularly interested in discussions about women's roles in Moroccan society. Her hosts acknowledged ongoing challenges while highlighting significant progress. They described how increasing numbers of women were entering universities, starting businesses, and taking leadership roles in various fields. The conversation avoided both defensive justifications and simplistic critiques, instead presenting nuanced perspectives on social change and cultural evolution. As their second day in Morocco concluded, Harry and Meghan reflected on experiences that had challenged and enriched their understanding. The mosque visit had revealed Islamic civilization's artistic and intellectual achievements. The encounters with young entrepreneurs had demonstrated how tradition and innovation could complement each other. The school visit had shown education's power to bridge cultural differences while preserving unique identities. Most importantly, every interaction had reinforced their growing conviction that meaningful diplomacy happened not in formal meetings but in genuine human connections. The children who touched Meghan's belly, the imam who shared his scholarly insights, the entrepreneurs who explained their dreams and challenges. These personal encounters created understanding that transcended political rhetoric or media stereotypes. Outside their hotel window, Marrakesh continued its eternal rhythm of ancient and modern, traditional and contemporary. Street vendors called out in multiple languages. Tourists explored historic souks, while locals conducted modern business. And the Atlas Mountains stood unchanged while the city evolved around them. It was a fitting backdrop for visitors who were themselves learning to navigate between different worlds and different expectations. The third day dawned with the promise of adventure as Harry and Meghan prepared to venture into the Atlas Mountains, leaving behind the urban sophistication of Marrakesh for Morocco's rural heartland. The journey would take them to a region where Berber communities had maintained their traditional way of life for centuries, offering insights into Morocco's indigenous culture that predated Arab conquest, Islamic conversion, and European colonialism. Their convoy wound through increasingly dramatic landscape as they climbed toward the high Atlas peaks. The road carved through rocky gorges where ancient geological forces had sculpted fantastic formations from red sandstone and limestone. Villages appeared like mirages, their mud brick buildings so perfectly matched to the surrounding terrain that they seemed to grow from the mountains themselves. These weren't tourist destinations, but working communities where families had lived for generations, earning their livelihood from terraced agriculture, traditional crafts, and small-scale livestock herding. Their first stop was the village of Asni, where the local women's cooperative had gained international recognition for their argan oil production and traditional weaving. The cooperative represented a successful model of sustainable development, preserving traditional skills while creating economic opportunities that kept young people connected to their communities rather than migrating to cities in search of work. The women who greeted them embodied dignity and quiet pride. Many spoke only Berber languages, communicating through interpreters, yet their warmth and hospitality transcended language barriers. They had dressed in their finest traditional clothing, colorful woven fabrics adorned with silver jewelry that had been passed down through generations. Their intricate facial tattoos, increasingly rare among younger women, told stories of tribal identity and personal history that connected them to ancestors stretching back centuries. Megan was particularly fascinated by the argan oil production process, which remained virtually unchanged from ancient methods. The women demonstrated how argan nuts were cracked by hand, their kernels ground using stone mills, and the oil extracted through patient pressing that required both skill and physical strength. The entire process was labor-intensive and required intimate knowledge of timing, temperature, and technique that could only be acquired through years of apprenticeship. What made the demonstration especially meaningful was learning how the women's cooperative had provided economic independence while preserving cultural traditions. Many members had used their earnings to fund their children's education, purchase modern conveniences for their homes, or start small businesses. Yet they continued to value traditional knowledge and practices, understanding that their heritage represented not just cultural identity, but practical wisdom adapted to local conditions. The cooperative's president, Lala Fatima, was a woman in her 50s who spoke with quiet authority about the challenges and achievements of rural development. She explained how the cooperative had grown from 5 founding members to over 40 participants, how they had learned to navigate international markets while maintaining quality standards, and how they balanced traditional methods with modern business practices. Through an interpreter, Lala Fatima shared stories that revealed the complexity of contemporary rural life in Morocco. She described how climate change was affecting traditional farming patterns, how young people struggle between preserving cultural connections and pursuing modern opportunities, and how women were gradually gaining greater economic and social independence while respecting traditional family structures. Harry found himself deeply moved by the women's stories of resilience and adaptation. Their experiences reminded him of military veterans he had worked with, people who had faced significant challenges yet maintained dignity, purpose, and commitment to their communities. The comparison wasn't lost on him. Both groups had learned to transform difficulty into strength, isolation into solidarity, and limitation into innovation. The afternoon brought a visit to a traditional Berber school where children learned both modern curriculum requirements and indigenous cultural knowledge. The school represented a unique educational model that acknowledged the importance of preparing students for contemporary opportunities while ensuring they remained connected to their cultural roots. Classes were conducted in Berber languages, Arabic, and French, creating truly multilingual citizens capable of navigating between different cultural contexts. The children, ranging from 6 to 14 years old, demonstrated remarkable linguistic flexibility. They recited traditional Berber poetry with the same enthusiasm they showed for mathematics problems, performed ancient songs alongside contemporary games, and switched effortlessly between languages depending on their audience. Their education wasn't compartmentalized, but integrated, treating cultural knowledge and academic subjects as complementary rather than competitive. One young student, Muhammad, particularly impressed his visitors with his ability to explain traditional agricultural techniques in 3 different languages while demonstrating advanced understanding of environmental science. His teacher explained how the curriculum deliberately connected traditional ecological knowledge with modern environmental studies, helping students understand that their ancestors' farming methods often reflected sophisticated understanding of sustainable practices. The school visit revealed both the achievements and challenges of preserving indigenous culture in a globalizing world. The children clearly took pride in their heritage while remaining curious about opportunities beyond their mountain villages. Their questions showed sophisticated awareness of global issues, yet they spoke knowledgeably about local traditions and customs. They represented a generation that refused to choose between cultural identity and modern participation, but insisted on finding ways to honor both. During lunch, prepared by local families using traditional recipes and locally grown ingredients, Harry and Meghan experienced Berber hospitality at its finest. The meal was served on traditional carpets under a tent decorated with geometric patterns that told stories of tribal history and cosmological beliefs. Each dish reflected centuries of culinary evolution, combining indigenous ingredients with spices and techniques acquired through trade and cultural exchange. Their hosts shared stories that revealed the depth and sophistication of Berber culture. They spoke of ancient trade routes that had connected West Africa with Mediterranean civilizations, of queens who had ruled vast territories with wisdom and justice, of scholars who had preserved knowledge through periods of political upheaval, and of artists who had developed distinctive architectural and decorative styles that influenced North African culture throughout history. These weren't romanticized tales of golden past, but nuanced historical narratives that acknowledged both achievements and struggles. The storytellers understood that cultural preservation required honest examination of heritage, including recognition of how traditions had evolved and adapted over time. Their pride in Berber identity coexisted with realistic assessment of contemporary challenges and opportunities. The conversation revealed how Berber communities were actively working to preserve their languages, which faced pressure from Arabic and French education systems and modern media. Community leaders described innovative programs using technology to document traditional stories, songs, and cultural practices. Young people were creating websites and social media content in Berber languages, finding ways to use modern tools for cultural preservation rather than cultural displacement. As afternoon shadows lengthened across the mountainous landscape, Harry and Meghan participated in a traditional blessing ceremony for their unborn child. The village elders, both men and women, offered prayers and gifts that reflected their hopes for the next generation. They presented hand-woven blankets created specifically for the occasion, silver amulets believed to provide protection, and traditional foods associated with health and prosperity. The ceremony was conducted primarily in Berber language, with occasional Arabic phrases, creating a linguistic tapestry that reflected Morocco's cultural complexity. The blessings weren't generic tourist presentations, but genuine expressions of community values and spiritual beliefs. The elders spoke of their hopes that the child would grow to bridge different worlds while remaining grounded in principles of respect, service, and cultural appreciation. Meghan was visibly moved by the ceremony's sincerity and the evident care that had gone into preparing meaningful gifts. The hand-woven blankets represented hours of skilled labor. The silver amulets were family heirlooms offered as expressions of welcome, and the traditional foods had been prepared using recipes passed down through generations. The gifts weren't valuable in monetary terms, but priceless in their cultural significance and personal meaning. The blessing ceremony included storytelling that connected their unborn child to universal themes of hope, growth, and cultural bridge building. The elders spoke of how children represented renewal and possibility, how each generation had the opportunity to learn from the past while creating new solutions for contemporary challenges, and how cultural mixing could create strength rather than confusion if approached with wisdom and respect. As evening approached, and it became time to leave the mountain village, Harry and Meghan felt genuine reluctance to end these encounters. The day had provided experiences that transcended typical royal visits, offering authentic insights into a way of life that remained vibrant despite facing modern pressures. The people they had met weren't museum pieces preserving ancient customs, but living communities actively engaged in cultural evolution. The return journey to Marrakesh provided opportunities for reflection on what they had experienced. The landscape that had seemed merely picturesque during the morning drive now appeared rich with human stories and cultural significance. Every terraced field represented generations of agricultural knowledge. Every village embodied centuries of social organization, and every mountain peak stood as witness to countless individual and collective struggles and achievements. Their Berber hosts had offered more than cultural education. They had demonstrated approaches to navigating between tradition and modernity that seemed increasingly relevant in a rapidly changing world. Their ability to maintain cultural identity while adapting to new circumstances, to preserve traditional knowledge while embracing beneficial innovations, and to remain rooted in community while engaging with global opportunities provided inspiration for anyone struggling to balance competing demands and loyalties. Back at their hotel in Marrakesh, Harry and Meghan spent the evening processing their mountain experiences. The Berber blessing ceremony had added spiritual dimension to their Moroccan journey, while the encounters with the women's cooperative and traditional school had revealed practical models for sustainable development that honored both cultural heritage and economic necessity. The handwoven blankets and traditional gift from the mountain village would travel back to Britain with them, but more importantly, the stories and insights they had gained would influence their future work and their approach to raising their child. The Berber elders' blessing had emphasized universal values of respect, service, and cultural bridge building, principles that seemed increasingly important as they contemplated their roles as parents and public figures. As they settled into their final night in Morocco, the Atlas Mountains standing silent and eternal beyond their window, Harry and Meghan understood that their journey had provided more than diplomatic success or cultural education. They had experienced genuine human connection that transcended official protocol, encountered wisdom that challenged conventional assumptions, and received blessings that would accompany them long after they returned to their royal duties in Britain. The final morning in Morocco arrived with a bittersweet awareness that their extraordinary journey was nearing its end. Harry and Meghan awoke to the familiar sounds of Marrakesh stirring to life. The gentle call to morning prayer, the distant clip-clop of donkeys carrying goods to market, and the gradual crescendo of urban activity that had become the soundtrack to their stay. Their last day would be dedicated to exploring Morocco's ancient educational traditions and contemporary artistic renaissance, providing a fitting conclusion to a trip that had revealed so many layers of Moroccan civilization. Their first destination was the Al Qarawiyyin University in Fez, often considered the oldest continuously operating university in the world. The journey from Marrakesh to Fez took them through Morocco's Middle Atlas region, with a landscape gradually transformed from the dramatic red rocks of the south to the gentler hills and olive groves of the north. Ancient Roman ruins dotted the countryside, reminders of the many civilizations that had shaped this crossroads between Africa and Europe. Fez itself appeared like a vision from another era as their convoy approached the ancient city walls. The Medina, with its maze of narrow streets and towering minarets, had remained virtually unchanged for centuries. UNESCO had designated it a World Heritage Site, recognizing both its architectural significance and its continued vitality as a living community. Unlike many historic sites that had become tourist attractions, Fez remained a working city where traditional crafts, religious education, and family life continued much as they had for generations. Al-Qarawiyyin University, founded in 859 CE by Fatima al-Fihri, a visionary woman who used her inheritance to establish a mosque and center of learning, represented Islamic civilization's contributions to global education. For over 1,000 years, scholars had come from across the known world to study mathematics, astronomy, medicine, theology, and philosophy within its walls. The university's libraries contained manuscripts that preserved Greek philosophical texts during Europe's Dark Ages, advanced mathematical concepts that would later influence European Renaissance thinking, and medical knowledge that represented the cutting edge of medieval science. Their guide, Professor Ahmed Ben Ali, was himself a product of this ancient educational tradition, having studied traditional Islamic jurisprudence before earning advanced degrees at both Oxford and the Sorbonne. He embodied Morocco's approach to education, deeply rooted in classical traditions, yet fully engaged with contemporary scholarship. His explanation of the university's history revealed how Islamic education had historically emphasized critical thinking, rigorous debate, and intellectual curiosity rather than mere memorization or dogmatic acceptance. The library tour proved particularly fascinating. Ancient manuscripts, some over 1,000 years old, were preserved in temperature-controlled rooms where scholars continued to study texts that had shaped Islamic thought for centuries. Professor Ben Ali showed them mathematical treatises that had introduced algebraic concepts to Europe, medical texts that described surgical procedures centuries before they appeared in European medicine, and philosophical works that had influenced both Islamic and Christian thinking during medieval times. Megan was particularly intrigued by the stories of female scholars who had taught at Al-Qarawiyyin throughout its history. Professor Ben Ali described how Islamic educational tradition had historically valued female scholarship, how women had served as teachers and researchers, and how the university's founder had established endowments that specifically supported education for both men and women. These historical precedents challenged contemporary stereotypes, while demonstrating how traditional Islamic culture had often been more progressive than modern assumptions suggested. The university visit included meetings with contemporary students who represented Morocco's new generation of Islamic scholars. These young men and women were pursuing traditional religious studies while also engaging with modern academic disciplines. They could discuss classical Arabic poetry with the same sophistication they brought to contemporary social theory, analyze medieval theological debates with the same rigor they applied to current economic challenges, and navigate between religious identity and secular scholarship with remarkable intellectual flexibility. One student, Amina El-Fassi, particularly impressed Harry and Meghan with her research on Islamic environmental ethics. She was examining how classical Islamic texts addressed ecological responsibility, connecting medieval theological concepts with contemporary environmental challenges. Her work demonstrated how traditional religious scholarship could contribute to modern policy discussions, offering perspectives often overlooked in secular environmental movements. The conversation revealed how Al-Qarawiyyin was adapting to contemporary challenges while maintaining its educational mission. Students still memorized classical texts and engaged in traditional scholarly debates, but they also used modern research methods, participated in international academic conferences, and applied historical insights to current problems. The university represented successful integration of traditional and modern approaches to learning. From the university, they traveled to the famous Fez Medina to witness traditional crafts that had been perfected over centuries. The narrow streets buzzed with activity as craftsmen pursued trades passed down through generations. Metalworkers creating intricate brass and copper items, leatherworkers producing goods from hides processed in medieval tanneries, and weavers creating carpets using techniques that predated written history. The craft workshops revealed Morocco's approach to preserving traditional skills while adapting to modern markets. Master craftsmen worked alongside apprentices who were learning techniques that required years to master. Yet they also used modern tools and marketing methods to reach international customers. The ancient guild system had evolved to incorporate contemporary business practices while maintaining quality standards and knowledge transmission that ensured craft traditions would survive. At a traditional carpet workshop, Harry and Meghan witnessed the extraordinary skill required to create the geometric patterns that characterized Moroccan textile art. The weavers, primarily women, worked from memory rather than written patterns, their fingers moving with practiced precision to create designs that required mathematical understanding as well as artistic vision. Each carpet represented months of patient labor and generations of accumulated knowledge about color, pattern, and technique. The workshop owner, Master Hassan Tatsi, explained how traditional crafts were adapting to global markets while maintaining authentic methods and materials. His carpets were sold internationally through online platforms. Yet every piece was created using hand-spun wool and natural dyes according to ancient recipes. Modern technology helped him reach customers worldwide, but the actual production process remained unchanged from medieval times. Their exploration of the Medina included visits to traditional bookbinders, calligraphers, and illuminators who continued arts that had flourished during Islam's golden age. These craftsmen created both religious texts and secular works, demonstrating skills that combined technical expertise with artistic vision. Their workshops represented links to a time when books were precious objects requiring months of skilled labor to produce, each volume representing collaboration between scribes, artists, and craftsmen. The afternoon brought a special visit to a contemporary art gallery that showcased how modern Moroccan artists were reinterpreting traditional themes using contemporary techniques and materials. The gallery featured works that explored identity, globalization, cultural preservation, and social change through visual art that combined traditional Moroccan motifs with international artistic movements. Artist Lala Es-Saidi, whose work was featured prominently in the exhibition, had gained international recognition for photographs that challenged stereotypes about Arab women while celebrating traditional Moroccan aesthetics. Her images featured women in traditional settings, but posed in ways that suggested agency and strength rather than passivity. The photographs had been exhibited in major museums worldwide, bringing Moroccan artistic vision to global audiences. The gallery visit revealed how contemporary Moroccan artists were navigating between cultural authenticity and international art markets. They drew inspiration from traditional crafts, architectural elements, and historical themes, but expressed these influences through modern media and techniques. Their work addressed universal themes while remaining distinctly Moroccan, demonstrating how cultural specificity could enhance rather than limit artistic communication. Meeting with the artists provided insights into Morocco's cultural renaissance. They spoke about balancing respect for tradition with artistic innovation, about addressing social issues while celebrating cultural heritage, and about participating in global art movements while maintaining distinctive Moroccan perspectives. Their conversations revealed sophisticated understanding of both local and international cultural dynamics. The gallery exhibition included collaborative works created by Moroccan and international artists, demonstrating how cultural exchange could generate new creative possibilities. These collaborations avoided both cultural appropriation and defensive isolation, instead showing how different artistic traditions could inspire each other while maintaining their distinctive characteristics. As evening approached, Harry and Meghan attended a farewell reception at the British consulate in Fez, where they met with Moroccan intellectuals, artists, business leaders, and social activists. The gathering represented Morocco's diverse professional community, people who contributed to their country's development while maintaining connections to international networks and global conversations. The conversations revealed Morocco's position as a bridge between different worlds. Many attendees had studied or worked internationally, yet chosen to return home to contribute to national development. They spoke multiple languages, understood different cultural systems, and could navigate between traditional and modern contexts with remarkable sophistication. Their stories demonstrated how globalization could strengthen rather than weaken cultural identity when approached thoughtfully. Dr. Raja Majadi, a prominent sociologist who had studied social change in contemporary Morocco, explained how the country was managing rapid modernization while preserving cultural continuity. She described how urban planning incorporated traditional architectural elements, how educational reform balanced international standards with local knowledge, and how economic development projects considered social and cultural impact alongside financial returns. The evening's discussions covered topics ranging from renewable energy development to cultural preservation, from women's rights to international diplomacy. The conversations weren't superficial diplomatic exchanges, but substantive discussions among informed professionals who understood complexity and nuance. They revealed Morocco as a nation seriously engaged with contemporary challenges while drawing strength from historical achievements and cultural traditions. As their final evening in Morocco concluded, Harry and Meghan reflected on experiences that had far exceeded their expectations. The university visit had revealed Islamic civilization's intellectual contributions. The craft workshops had demonstrated the vitality of traditional skills, and the contemporary art galleries had shown how cultural heritage could inspire modern creativity. More importantly, every encounter had reinforced their understanding of Morocco as a nation that successfully balanced tradition and modernity, local identity and global participation, cultural preservation, and adaptive change. The people they had met, from university students to master craftsmen to contemporary artists, had demonstrated approaches to living authentically in a complex world that seemed increasingly relevant beyond Morocco's borders. Their room at La Mamounia was filled with gifts from their various hosts, traditional crafts, contemporary artworks, and books that would help them continue learning about Morocco after their return to Britain. But the most valuable gifts were intangible, insights into different ways of approaching cultural identity, education, artistic expression, and social development that would influence their thinking long after the formal diplomatic aspects of their visit had faded into memory. The departure day arrived with the golden light of Morocco casting long shadows across the tarmac at Mohammed V International Airport. Harry and Meghan stood at the threshold between their extraordinary three-day journey and their return to royal duties in Britain, both deeply changed by experiences that had challenged their assumptions and expanded their understanding of diplomacy, culture, and human connection. The morning had begun with final courtesies and gift exchanges that reflected the depth of relationships formed during their brief stay. King Mohammed VI had personally selected traditional Moroccan items that carried cultural significance beyond their material value. A handcrafted silver tea service that represented hospitality traditions dating back centuries, rare books of Moroccan poetry in both Arabic and French, and exquisite textiles created by master weavers whose families had practiced their craft for generations. But the most meaningful gifts came from ordinary Moroccans they had encountered throughout their journey. The Women's Cooperative from the Atlas Mountains had presented Meghan with a specially woven blanket for their unborn child, incorporating protective symbols and blessing designs that connected their baby to Berber traditions of welcome and hope. The school children from Rabat had created a collaborative artwork featuring messages in Arabic, French, and English expressing their dreams for international friendship and understanding. The Imam from the Hassan II Mosque had offered Harry a small volume of Islamic poetry that explored themes of peace, justice, and spiritual reflection, selections chosen specifically to resonate with someone dedicated to service and humanitarian work. The young entrepreneurs they had met presented them with a digital collection of their projects and achievements, demonstrating how traditional Moroccan values could inspire contemporary innovation and social change. These personal gifts reflected relationships that had transcended the formal requirements of royal visits. Every encounter had revealed shared human values that crossed cultural boundaries. Parents' hopes for their children's futures, young people's ambitions to contribute meaningfully to their communities, scholars' dedication to preserving and advancing knowledge, and artists' desires to express beauty and truth through their work. As they prepared to board their aircraft, Harry and Meghan were approached by representatives from each group they had visited. The university students from Al Qarawiyyin had prepared a formal letter expressing appreciation for the respectful attention paid to Islamic educational traditions. The craftsmen from Fez had created a small metalwork piece specifically for their departure, incorporating both British and Moroccan symbols in a design that celebrated cultural connection. The Berber elders who had blessed their unborn child appeared with additional gifts, small silver amulets that could be worn by the baby as protection and connection to the mountain communities that had welcomed them. The contemporary artist had collaborated on a piece that captured the essence of their Moroccan journey through visual symbols that told the story of cultural bridge building and mutual respect. These farewell gestures weren't protocol requirements, but genuine expressions of affection and respect that had developed through authentic encounters. The relationships formed during 3 days had created lasting connections that would influence both the Moroccans they had met and their own future work and perspectives. The airport ceremony itself reflected the success of their visit. Moroccan officials who had initially approached the tour with professional courtesy had clearly developed genuine appreciation for Harry and Meghan's engagement with their country's complexities and achievements. Their speeches acknowledged not just diplomatic politeness, but real understanding of Morocco's aspirations and challenges. King Mohammed VI's farewell remarks emphasized how the visit had strengthened bilateral relationships while creating personal connections that would endure beyond formal diplomatic channels. He specifically mentioned how Meghan's pregnancy had added special meaning to the Berber blessing ceremony, how Harry's military background had created natural connections with Moroccan veterans, and how both had demonstrated curiosity and respect that honored Moroccan heritage while building contemporary partnerships. The royal couple's own farewell remarks reflected genuine emotion rather than diplomatic formality. Harry spoke about discovering Morocco's role in preserving and advancing Islamic civilization, about learning from traditional communities that had successfully balanced cultural preservation with adaptive change, and about meeting young people whose creativity and ambition inspired optimism for the future. Meghan's comments focused on the women she had encountered, from university students pursuing advanced degrees to craftswomen preserving traditional skills, from social entrepreneurs creating economic opportunities to mothers raising children who would inherit both traditional wisdom and contemporary possibilities. She expressed particular gratitude for the blessing ceremony that had connected their unborn child to universal traditions of hope and welcome. As their aircraft lifted off from Moroccan soil, both Harry and Meghan gazed down at the landscape that had provided such rich experiences. The Atlas Mountains where they had received Berber blessings, the ancient cities where they had explored Islamic educational traditions, the modern districts where they had met contemporary artists and entrepreneurs, all contributed to a comprehensive understanding of Morocco's multifaceted identity. The flight home provided opportunities for reflection on how their Moroccan experiences would influence their future work. The models of successful cultural integration they had witnessed offered insights relevant to Britain's own diversity challenges. The approaches to education that combined traditional knowledge with contemporary requirements suggested possibilities for educational innovation. The artistic expressions that celebrated heritage while engaging with global conversations demonstrated how cultural authenticity could enhance rather than limit creative expression. More personally, the blessing ceremony for their unborn child had connected them to universal traditions of parenthood that transcended cultural boundaries. The hopes expressed by Berber elders, Moroccan students, and contemporary artists reflected shared human values that would guide their approach to raising a child who would inherit multiple cultural traditions and global responsibilities. The gifts they carried home represented more than diplomatic souvenirs. Each item connected them to specific people whose stories had enriched their understanding. The tea service linking them to hospitality traditions, the textiles carrying forward craft knowledge, the books preserving literary heritage, and the artworks celebrating creative innovation. These objects would serve as reminders of relationships formed and lessons learned during their transformative Moroccan journey. Their conversations during the flight revealed how the trip had exceeded expectations in ways that couldn't have been anticipated. What had begun as a diplomatic obligation had become a personally meaningful experience that changed their perspectives on cultural difference, international understanding, and the possibilities for authentic connection across traditional boundaries. The media coverage of their visit, which they reviewed during the flight, captured many significant moments. The mosque visit that demonstrated respect for Islamic heritage, the school interactions that revealed genuine warmth with children, the craft workshops that showed appreciation for traditional skills, and the blessing ceremony that connected their family to Moroccan traditions. But the most meaningful aspects of their journey couldn't be captured in photographs or news reports. The depth of conversations with university students, the insights gained from traditional craftsmen, the wisdom shared by Berber elders, and the creativity demonstrated by contemporary artists had provided education that would influence their thinking and work for years to come. As they approached British airspace, Harry and Meghan understood that their Moroccan journey had prepared them not just for their immediate return to royal duties, but for their evolving roles as global citizens, cultural bridge builders, and parents of a child who would inherit an increasingly interconnected world. The lessons learned in Morocco about balancing tradition with innovation, about finding common ground across cultural differences, about maintaining authentic identity while engaging with global communities, would prove invaluable as they navigated their own future challenges and opportunities. The aircraft touched down at Heathrow Airport, returning them to the familiar rhythms of British life and royal responsibilities. But they carried with them the sounds of Berber blessings, the images of ancient architectural achievements, the tastes of traditional Moroccan cuisine, and most importantly, the stories of remarkable people who had shared their wisdom, hospitality, and friendship during 3 extraordinary days that had expanded their understanding of what diplomacy, service, and human connection could accomplish. Looking back, neither Harry nor Meghan could have imagined that this Morocco trip would later be remembered as one of their final major overseas tours as senior working members of the royal family. At the time, they simply felt grateful for experiences that had enriched their lives, expanded their perspectives, and prepared them for whatever challenges and opportunities lay ahead. The Kingdom of Morocco had given them gifts that would last a lifetime. Not just the beautiful objects they carried home, but the insights, relationships, and inspiration that would continue to influence their work and their approach to raising their child in an interconnected world where understanding different cultures wasn't just valuable, but essential.